A recent study approved by the University of Alabama at Birmingham found a growing trend of post-traumatic stress disorder diagnoses and acute stress disorder among college students. In fact, the data shows that between 2017 and 2022, the prevalence of PTSD more than doubled, going from 3.4% to 7.5%. Joining me now, psychotherapist Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Dr. Ludwig, this is really interesting, especially when you're looking at this segment of the population. Why? Why are we seeing this?
Well, I think we live in a different world. I mean, these kids experienced the pandemic where everything in their life changed, including loss of people they loved and not being in school and school shootings and sexual abuse and everything they're viewing it on their phones. They know people who have experienced it, and social unrest too is a big deal. And there have been changes in the criteria for PTSD to make it more accurate. So we could be seeing a combination of what students are experiencing and the change and shift in the diagnosis.
And maybe the prevalence also them reporting it. Because to your point about them seeing it, I think we sort of like unleashed this chokehold that was previously there on silence, where people are now talking about these things. But I understand that according to New York Times article, there's actually division in the field about whether the events you just mentioned, like the pandemic, like social unrest, actually qualify as triggering events that could actually scientifically cause PTSD.
It's highly individual. So one person may experience a pandemic and be completely fine, while another person has a very different experience. So a lot of it is how a person is triggered. And you can't make a global statement that these triggers will impact and cause PTSD. They can. And then you assess the individual.
You know, it's interesting when you think of PTSD, we are used to hearing that associated with war veterans, right?
Yeah.
We just had D-Day commemorations. Why and how does this show up differently in college students?
Because of their life experience. And, again, there's fear about school shootings.
Yeah.
They hear about it all the time. They experienced the pandemic. The social unrest was right there. I also think social media makes things feel just more personal.
And present.
Yeah, and people are vocal about their opinions, vocal about what they're experiencing regarding mental health. And again, the shift in how we diagnose this disorder.
But do the symptoms present differently in this population?
Well, I mean, we can see that if you're a college student, you're socially isolated. You may have trouble with cognition. You might have depression, anxiety, suicidality. You might self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. So we do see this population being impacted in a very particular way that can influence their education.
How do you fix it? What are the treatment options?
I think just making mental health available and colleges being aware and saying, hey, we have group supports for our students. We have individual health care. We have psychiatric, interventions. Yes, right. But also reducing the stigma is so important. I think we're doing that really well these days.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, always a pleasure when you bring your expertise to our show.
Thank you. Likewise.
Appreciate it. All right, and stay with us. You have a short break ahead, and you're coming right back here to NBC News Daily.